Counting
the cost of rock collecting.
cool. So when did you start doing that?
Um, yeah, I probably started that about 16 years ago,
Uh-huh.
and had always been interested in doing things outdoors. I love just going for walks or hikes, and remember we even did that some when I was there at Yongnan last, many years ago. And it's just a good excuse to get out and explore new territory, get up in the mountains, get out in the desert, just get out and be outdoors.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I mean, I love going outdoors, but I don't even know what they are when I look at them. So, did you start like collecting because you were fascinated by the books that you were reading about rocks?
I Yeah, that's part of it. Part of it is I just started collecting rocks that I thought looked interesting and pretty. One of my favorite kinds of rocks is called a thunder egg, and they are round. They look almost like a baseball on the outside, except a rock. But then you cut them open, and they'll have crystals inside. They'll have different patterns. You never know what's inside. So you kind of get like a double benefit there because number one, you get to go out and find them out in nature, and then number two, you're never sure what's going to be inside.
So you cut it with a saw?
Yes, I use a diamond saw with a diamond blade, which is fascinating to me because it's a blade that has little chips of diamond in the edges that cuts through the rock, yet it won't cut your skin if you touch it,
Oh.
which is hard to understand because it can cut through anything as hard as a rock, but it still won't cut through your skin.
You mean when you accidentally cut yourself, it doesn't cut you?
Correct.
That's so weird.
It's very weird. But I would not recommend touching it just to try because it's spinning fast, so friction will burn.
Ah, so it's not like this. It's electronic.
Yeah, it spins real fast.
Oh, I see. So you use something that clogs your ears?
No, I don't because it's enclosed in a
Ah,
basically a big metal box with a bath of oil at the bottom so that the blade catches that and throws it up and keeps the rock um, moist and from getting too hot.
oh, I see. But it doesn't affect your ear, the noise?
No, I usually just turn it on and then walk away and do something else.
Oh, I see. You don't have to. You don't have to stay there.
Correct.
Wow. But I mean, if it has diamond, it's gotta be expensive, right?
Surprisingly, not that expensive.
I see. Wow. So, do you like stack them up at your storage area, or do you display what do you do with it?
Some of them I set up, some of them I just have in barrels outside, or I put them around like trees and make kind of like rock flower beds out of them. Um, I have an area out by the road where the neighborhood kids always come and then they can pick up some that they like and do all kinds of things with them.
Wow, they're more useful than I thought.
Yeah,
So your neighborhood people know you as somebody that has beautiful rocks everywhere.
yes,
Oh, that's awesome. So you've taught science at school,
correct,
at a school.
yes.
Wow, that's amazing. So what made you interested in science or rocks?
Um, I don't know, they just kind of go hand in hand together because as you study the geology and different aspects of rock formation and how they're formed, you learn more and more with the science behind it of how to find what you're looking for.
Wow. I recently watched a documentary. It was a free documentary, and this guy is that is an atheist, staunch atheist, is taking five different creationists. One from Muslim, one from Christianity, one from something something intellectual design or something, and then they take them on a road trip, and they are trying to convince all of them to yield to the appeal to believe in evolution. So some people believe in evolution when they look at rocks. Some people think it's created. So what do you see in nature when you look at them, and how have you been teaching your students?
Um, I think whether they're creationists or evolutionists, the way the rock forms, um, because you can replicate that in a lab, is pretty accurate. The biggest thing the evolutionists can't explain, and none of them are actually old enough, is they weren't there to know how long ago it really was.
Yeah.
So I think from a creationist standpoint, the basic information, once you get away from the timeline, is fairly accurate.
Oh.
And it's just the results, because so much of the rocks that I like to collect with the crystals and things like that, that's from moisture and minerals in the liquid when you have like volcanic eruptions and things like that. And then it just dries and condenses. And that can happen real quickly, as well as take longer, and you just never know for sure. And so that's the big fallacy, I think, in a lot of their theories, is that they don't know that it was millions or billions of years ago. There's no way to prove it.
Oh, I see. So the variables must have been different back then, as they think it was billions and millions of years ago, and also they have never seen it. So
Right. And without knowing what the conditions are, you could have something. Um, I know many years ago, I took a geology summer course from Walla Walla University, and we went and looked at this quite deep ditch or canyon actually outside Walla Walla. And you would look at that and you would think, wow, that must have taken years and years and years to form, until you talk to one of the farmers that lived there back before it formed. And it happened basically in one day when an irrigation canal broke.
because the documentary, the scientists poured the water and just showed how the soil changed, and he says, see, Grand Canyon could have been made just one flood, global flood. It's not possible.
One global flood could have easily done that. Um, Here in the Northwest, we have the Columbia River Gorge that is quite deep, and yet that all happened from one flood they now call the Brett's floods. And so it didn't take it even hundreds of years, let alone thousands or millions of years.
I mean, I guess we can say both evolutionists and creationists, they're both biased, but I mean, Christians or Muslims, they hold their Qurans or the Bible dearly. But do you think it's possible to look at the nature and say this must have been designed without that kind of canon?
Um, Say that again. I lost part of what you said there. I didn't follow it.
So some creationists and evolutionists, they are both biased. But
Correct.
um, most like people that are holding their canon dearly, whether it's canon, whether it's the Bible, uh, they are influenced by that literature. So without those um, canon, without those uh, sacred literature, they really cherish. Do you think is reasonable or feasible for any person to look at the nature and say this must have been designed?
could. Um, you know, I've had some of my most interesting, lively discussions about creationism and evolution with scientists who are evolutionists, but they're secure enough that they are actually willing to listen to a creationist viewpoint, and say, yeah, there's something to what you're saying, and yeah, there are some problems with evolution, and here's some of the things we can't explain.
Mm. So some honest
But they're
people, yeah.
yeah, they're willing to admit that yeah, it doesn't answer everything.
Mm. So they know that there's also a gap or flaw in their own theory. But why do they say it's such a well proven science, as they say? Like they said it's a fact.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because it's not proven. And if if you ask the ones who will actually discuss it with you, so how do you prove that? How can you even replicate it in a lab? Because that's one of the things that science always claims is that, well, science is science is because it's reliable, it's consistent, and it's repeatable. You can do it again. And so you say, okay, so start life in a test tube. Well, they can't do it.
That's very true.
And you look at even some of the simple things from a science teacher standpoint, like cell theory. And one of the basic tenets of cell theory is that all cells come from pre-existing cells, which avoids the question, how can they come from pre-existing cells? Where did those first ones come from?
Oh,
They
that's
had to come from somewhere.
so that's an established theory that a cell came from a already existing cell, and that's what people have accepted as viable thing
Right.
to
That's
believe.
one of the commonly accepted tenets of biology. It's called cell theory. Is all cells come from pre-existing cells. And it's like, well, yeah, they do, but where did the first ones come from?
And it's very difficult to be creative about
It
that.
is.
Wow, that's awesome. I've taught at schools. I mean, I've taught at two schools.
Uh-huh.
One in Seoul, one in uh, Yeongnam, the Gyeongsan area where we met.
Right.
And I noticed that school system is very rigid, and I think evidence like private Christian religious school systems are a little bit different, but I experienced that it's very controlled in the sense that teachers need to listen to parents, and parents want to steer the ship, and they say go this way, go that way. Money comes from parents, and especially in Korea, government money has been poured a lot into private school system. So as you are teaching science, as you are working as a teacher for many years, uh, how are you able to stay within the system, but also at the same time um, hold your own educational values without compromising or yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits of teaching in a private school
Mm-hmm.
because you are not as controlled by the state standards of this is the curriculum you must follow. Um, and as long as you can reasonably defend what you've done, at least in my experience, I haven't run into a lot of problems that way. I've had people who haven't always agreed with what I have done, um, but yet they see results that they like, and I can usually defend, I have a reason for what I have done.
Because I mean, I met you when I knew you were a teacher, and I saw you in the Facebook collecting rocks, and I was thinking, wow, he must be so creative. And when I was in Yeongnam, I would teach students for 30 minutes, and I said when you finish your work, you can play board games. So I was playing board games for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And the
Uh-huh.
principals and vice principals would come in and look at my classroom that looked like chaos, like we're a marketplace, some kind of playground, because everybody's just playing games. And they didn't understand that. And I told them I already finished all the work. And that was the motivation. They learn so much more efficiently when they know they have the aim to shoot for. So I was very frustrated. That's why I'm feeling a lot more fulfilled when I can come with my own school, come with my own curriculum here in my own my living room. So have you ever experienced any challenges like that as a teacher, that is, as someone that is trying to be more creative and be more ideal, I guess?
Occasionally I have run into that kind of thing, but not real often. Um, and sometimes I have just kept running into those walls, and I either find another way to get around it or eventually say, okay, this is a battle that's just not worth fighting. I'm not going to get anywhere with this one.
Oh, I see. Wow. So, um, so were you? What kind of child were you when you were like 10-year old, 15-year old? Were you always interested in like science and going into nature?
Yeah, my mom says basically I would be outside doing as much outside stuff as I could from when it got light till when it got dark.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, I've always enjoyed being outdoors, hiking, camping, backpacking, uh,
Wow.
all of that. And I remember when I was in, it would have been middle school, I had a big dog and we had big empty fields behind our house. And every chance I had, I would just take him out there and we'd just go hiking around and exploring and just being outside having fun.
So was that your dad or your friend that first like got you introduced to that, or did you just naturally get drawn to that?
I think I just naturally was drawn to that.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's very interesting. So were you like able to take your students out during class time, or did you say one day, okay, we're gonna go out and stuff?
Yeah, I could do that quite often. Even for PE, I would take the kids. That's again one advantage of teaching in a small school. I could load them all up in the school van, and we could go over and walk along the river. Or especially when I taught biology, we could go out looking for wildflowers, or looking for insects, or looking for birds. And then also when I taught biology, we would spend a week up on the Olympic Peninsula, going to the beach, going to tide pools, going up into the mountains, just out of the classroom for a whole week.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It was a lot of fun.
Wow. So when you are doing that kind of outdoor activities, did you have to get approved by the school, or were you able to just go?
Anything long and out of this immediate area where the school was, I would have to get permission from the school board, from the conference, and from the parents. Um, but for just local, like going to look for insects or birds or something like that, usually I could just go for the afternoon and take the kids.
Wow. I mean, even though I started this interview with your fascination with rocks, um, I thought it would be worth digging a little bit more deeper in your love for being outdoors. So, do you see many students that are like addicted to computer games and things? And do you think being outdoors
Yes,
are helpful?
yes. And that's, something that another reason that I like to do a lot of that kind of thing, to show them that there's a whole world out there that has nothing to do with an electronic device.
Uh-huh. So I guess it's difficult for you to get depressed.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I got bogged down with this little technical problems, and I'm just thinking, for 30 minutes, what in the world am I doing on a beautiful day? I'm just wasting
Yeah.
time trying to log in or trying to get a password. I feel so dumb all of a sudden sometimes.
Yeah, well, and last year after the virus hit, when we had to go to all online teaching, that was not fun at all because you're tied to the computer and the screen pretty much all day. Although I figured out a way around it that you'll get a laugh out of because I learned I can do Zoom meetings. And so I would go out hiking in the hills and find a nice big rock to sit on and do my Zoom class up there. And most of the time, people didn't even realize.
Oh, you had internet access up in the mountain?
Yeah, as long as I could get internet access, I was good to go.
Wow, I've never thought about that. I guess that's a good way to go.
Yes, it is. Very good.
Wow, that's awesome. So, how many years have you taught?
I taught for 42 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a long time.
You know what? You know what? When I met you, I was just thinking, wow, most teachers are so boring, or most teachers are so negative, or they're so boxed, and they don't seem to want to talk. So when I was in Yeongnam, I would rather talk to students or eat with students in the cafeteria, which probably shocked a lot of teachers because no teacher would do stuff like that. But when I was talking to you, I just noticed that you're not like other teachers. And you probably noticed the cultural differences in Korea. So
Yes.
why do you think some teachers end up becoming super rigid and like angry because they want to have control over their students, but also other teachers are still lively and happy and bubbly and all these
Um, some of it probably is a control issue, is that some people feel if they aren't controlling things, um, that's not my approach at all,
things?
obviously, but you saw that. And I think you get a lot further with people. Number one, you have to treat everybody with respect. Um, Whether you agree with them or not, you can still treat them respectfully and then let them make some choices and decisions on their own. Try to equip them so they can make wise choices and decisions, but give them that responsibility.
Wow. So respect them, accountability, and then freedom of choice. So if a new teacher or a parent that is wanting to homeschool their children, if they're considering outdoor class one day, what would you recommend they should be aware
Um, I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, as far as like safety things or things to watch out for, or
Yeah, I guess some tips or like things that you learned when you were doing things outdoors for class.
um, yeah, don't ever take or send a group of kids or go with a group of kids probably to someplace you've never been.
Oh,
Uh,
I see, I see.
you may not find what you thought you were going to find there.
Oh, I see.
But in fact, just last week, I took a group of kids for another teacher's class on a field trip to look for rocks along the river here. But it's a place I'd been before, so I knew what to expect. I knew what the conditions were going to be like. Um, I told them, we may not find much, but we'll be outside and we'll be having fun, which we did.
Wow. So you scout the area before you take any kids out there.
Yeah, and then probably have a purpose or something in mind. Um, because you can't just, drive up somewhere, open the doors to the van or the bus or the car and say, okay, go have fun, because that's asking for trouble.
That's true. They need to know what they're doing.
Right. So you kind of prep them ahead of time, talking about what they can expect to see there or what they should be looking for, and then participate with them.
Oh, I see.
It has, at least my experience has been, it seems to make a huge difference for kids if the teacher participates with them. Just like, you said eating with the kids in the cafeteria,
Hmm.
um, being willing to play games with them, talk to them, chat with them, find out what they like.
Oh,
Um, if they're in play soccer or surf or something like that, go watch some of their games. And it's just amazing once they know that you're actually interested in them, um, how much more cooperation, how much further along in the educational process you can get.
wow, that's awesome. So study the area, tell them what they need to learn and what they need to do, and then do you also like set up time limiters and also interact with them and pay attention to what they're doing? Do you also like put like a time limit or something?
Well, um, sometimes it's as simple as, okay, we have to be back at the school by 3 o'clock when your parents come to pick you up.
Oh.
So, you know, um,
Oh, I see.
but if you're out for the whole day, or if you're doing like a week-long trip or something, you can be really flexible. It's like, okay, this isn't working, let's go do something else, or this is working great, let's stay longer.
Oh, so it can be also flexible.
Yeah, flexibility is key to a teacher, I think.
Oh, that's true. That's very true.
And don't get stressed out if it didn't go the way you thought it would time wise. You know that from teaching, that some lessons work really well and some just, okay, this isn't working, we got to switch gears.
So when did you start want to become a teacher?
um, Probably about my senior year in college.
So you're studying
I went,
education?
pardon?
You're studying education?
Um, Actually, I was a English and psychology major with minors in history, math, and education. And
Oh.
I had planned to go into counseling, guidance and counseling. And then my senior year, I decided, I should get certification to teach, just in case I end up needing something else to fall back on. And I enjoyed it so much that I did that for the next 40 some years.
Wow, that's remarkable. So, what were the landmark moments when you were experiencing some sort of breakthrough, or when you were experiencing, I don't know, like trials or like joys or accomplishments or satisfactions?
um, Probably being willing to get outside of my comfort zone. I'll give you two examples. I went, before I met you, I had taught for 4 years in Hawaii. And when I went over there, it was something completely new, because I was very well established where I had been. I'd been 17 years in the same school. So I knew all the kids coming up pretty much. They knew me, they knew what to expect, I knew what to expect. And it's like, okay, time to try something new and different. Um, when I went over there to Korea, to Yeongnam, um, that was outside of my comfort zone because I wasn't used to working with kids that young. I had worked with older kids, high school kids,
Oh, I
all
see.
my career. And it's
Oh,
like, well, okay, this is going to be outside my comfort zone, but I loved it.
wow. I guess you love going on adventures.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be able to do several mission trips with students. Um, Another big adventure kind of thing. But yeah, be hands-on, be out, not tied to the classroom.
Wow, that's really exciting. So when did you know your time to retirement came? Is that set by age or what?
Um, Part of it's set by age. When you look and you're kind of reached the maximum federal benefits
Uh,
that you will get, and the other part, I talked to, other people whose input I valued, and one of the things they said was, "Don't work till you have to retire." Because retire when you can so that you can still travel and
oh,
enjoy traveling.
oh, I see.
Um, so, this year I've been retired, I've been substitute teaching. I was also able in January to go with my sister, and we took our mom down to Southern California for a week. I was able to spend 10 days down in Mexico in January. Actually, in a week, I'm leaving for 10 days sailing in the Bahamas.
Wow,
So I'm getting a chance to do things like that that if I were still working, I couldn't do because I would still be teaching.
that's very true. Wow, it sounds like you're enjoying your life.
Yeah, I'm pretty busy. I also, and I'm not sure how this started, but I, for years and years, believed very strongly in service and trying to instill the willingness for service projects with my students. So when I taught before COVID hit, I had two regular monthly service projects where I would take my students and we would go. One of them was to a local food bank and sort through things and get it prepped for distribution to needy people that were needing food assistance and things. And then another one, we would go up to a place called World Vision and help sort things that went all over the world to help people in need. Um, and so I'm still doing that. I actually go 2 days a week and help at a food warehouse that distributes to churches and other food banks. So service is very important. And I've had kids, I try to instill that in the students. Number one, and I tell them, kids always want to get out of the classroom. Well, here's a good way to get out of the classroom, do something worthwhile. And I've even had former students come back and join us on those because they enjoy it so much. And that's part of my goal, is to get it so it's like, this is actually worthwhile to do.
Wow, that's so awesome. Because when I was at Andrews doing my exchange student program
Uh,
for about a year as an English major, I just noticed there was like a I don't know what it was, but people were like wrapping things up and it was used goods or like and there were people that retire and they were doing it for free. And I was thinking, wow, I've never seen this in Korea. Most retired people don't do this. And I just noticed that many people over there are so service oriented. So is that some sort of a culture or is that the norm or have you seen people doing that growing up? But what happened?
I'm not sure how I got started in it. Um, I would say it's probably not the norm, but as you have experienced, it probably actually happens more in this country than in Korea.
Yeah. When I went to Hershey School near my wife's parents' hometown, that's a low income family and school that is huge, funded by the huge company. We don't see that in Korea. We don't see huge companies funding that kind of school.
Uh-huh.
So I thought service is a big thing. Donation, charities are very big there. So um, so when you serve, when you help people, how precious or how important is it for you? Are you doing it because you have to, or are you doing it because it makes you feel good, or what do you like about that?
Um, I'm doing it because I want to.
Okay.
I don't have to do it. I guess I could say it gives me a sense of fulfillment. Um, Mother's Day was this past Sunday here in this country, and last Friday I was down with my mother, spent some time with her and with my sister, and she was talking about when we were growing up. And I said something about, going to this warehouse that I help out now, and she said, "You always did like to help people." So
Wow.
I have no idea. Somehow I got that gene, I guess, and it works quite well.
So you've been doing that all your life, like it's a habit. It was it were habit.
Apparently so.
Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. So, do you have any story of a child that experienced some sort of transformation as a result of like good education or good interaction or good friendship or something like that?
Oh, where to start?
Something you can share anonymously, I guess.
Yeah, you know, trying to think of what to share and
I probably have a lot.
how to protect. Um, One student years and years ago, probably 35 years ago, um, was struggling and started getting into some really bad things at school. And, another teacher and I went to the principal and said, you're going to have to make a choice. Either this student has to go or we're going to quit teaching here. Because she was fairly openly dealing drugs at school and things like that, and the principal wouldn't do anything about it.
Wow.
Well, we found out later that part of the reason the principal wouldn't do anything about it was because he was having an affair with this student, unfortunately. Um, but I was able to maintain a communications pathway with her and listen to her when she started talking about that. And so we were able to address that, which explained a lot of other things. And going from someone who she absolutely detested, I've still got a note she once wrote me that said, "When I have kids, I hope they have a teacher just like you."
Wow.
Because I had standards, I made them clear, I held her to those, but it didn't mean that I hated her,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
So there was a balance between
Yeah.
mercy and justice.
So, she knew I still respected and cared about her as a person.
Wow.
Even if I would say, "No, you cannot do that. If you're going to do that, you can't be here."
Mm. So, so since the moment when you went to the principal's office, how long did you continue to teach her or interact with
Um, she left our school like the next day after that, but I stayed in touch with her and her family. And I'm still in touch with her today. She has grandkids today, so that lets you
her?
know how long ago that was.
Wow, that's beautiful. So she had her own child. She started her family and she had her grandchildren and everything, and she still contacts you.
Yes, yeah.
Wow, that's so beautiful. That's so awesome. So, did you have any teacher that you admire growing up that impacted you?
Um, yeah, I think I had one or two that did because, and it's probably what I've tried to emulate, they actually listened to what we as kids said.
Mm,
They may not have agreed with it, but at least you knew they were listening to you.
mm. Wow, that's very important.
Yes, very.
Because last week my student texted me, and he was supposed to come for to class, but he was being late, and he was like texting me, and when I read it, it was like a whole bunch of like excuses, and to me that was so lame. He was like, yeah, like I'm getting involved with this police guy, and yeah, the police officer called me over. That's why I'm being late. I'm just like, dude, why would a police officer calls a elementary school kid that's like a fourth grader? I just come to class,
Yeah.
and I guess I should have listened to him because yeah, I don't think he felt like I was actually listening to him, taking him seriously, even that was a lie. So I think sometimes you have to go along with whatever they're doing to gain their confidence. Do you sometimes feel that way?
Oh, definitely. I've had students who I know are telling you stories, and I've had people say, well, why don't you confront them? And it's like, well, why? We both know it didn't happen that way. Um, and I would rather have them feel they can at least talk to me than shut off that avenue.
That's very true. I think I'm realizing that more and more.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're not always like that in the for the first 5, 10 years of your teaching, right?
Well, I'm sure I wasn't.
So when did you uh start treating students a little bit differently?
I think it was a gradual process.
Okay.
And I think, I really think a lot of my prior college training as I was preparing to be going to counseling probably helped a lot.
Oh, that's true. So fundamental principle when it comes to counseling your clients or whoever in need is listening to them.
Actually, listen, yeah.
That's very true. So if you were to run your own school, or if you were to start your own school, or because I am somebody that has escaped the system because I didn't like it and have come up with my own, and I'm just doing it with my wife. I can do whatever I want. So
Uh-huh.
what is the ideal dynamic that you think that should be in the textbook?
Um, I guess it depends on what you want to accomplish,
Okay.
and I would tell kids, and I used to not believe this. I used to think everything I taught was really important. Uh, but as I got older and hopefully somewhat wiser, I've learned that, the actual information I'm trying to teach them probably doesn't really matter. Because by the time they get out into the real world, things will have changed so much. It's changing so fast. But what I want to try to teach them to do is number one, ask questions. If you don't understand something, ask. And number two, learn to stick with something until you get an answer, get a solution, get something worked out, and then learn how to find the answers.
Wow.
Because the actual information has changed so much especially recently with all of the electronic stuff that you can find, everything you need right on your phone right now.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I was telling somebody just the other day, I haven't used my laptop computer in years because I can do it all on my phone.
That's true. So keep that curiosity going, and
Yeah,
then problem solving skill is the ultimate takeaway.
well, problem solving and
The grit, the perseverance.
this, yeah, perseverance, stick to it. Um, it may be, we all have things we have to do that aren't a whole lot of fun, but stick with it and get it done and then get on to something else.
Wow. This is my last question. So, if somebody would like to homeschool their child, what do you recommend?
A lot depends on what their background is. I have seen some parents try to homeschool their kids, and the kids really suffer because the parents don't know what they're doing.
Mm,
Um, there are, and I don't know what it's like in Korea, but here in this country, there are a lot of well-established homeschool programs.
uh-huh.
Uh, get one of those.
Okay.
Find one, and there are good Christian ones, Christian-based ones too.
Okay.
Get one and follow that. Set a schedule. Don't just say, okay, we'll do math today, but we may not go tomorrow, and maybe not till next week. But actually get a regular schedule because you have to learn to stick with things.
Wow. That's beautiful. Find a good program, follow the schedule, stick with it, and get it done.
Yeah. And as you do it, or especially if you come from a teaching background like you do,
Yeah.
I would look at it much like one of the other things I like to do is I like to cook and experiment with new recipes.
Oh.
Well, to me, recipes are general starting points. I rarely follow them carefully
Uh-huh.
because number one, I may not have everything it calls for.
That's
So
true.
what can I substitute to accomplish that?
Uh-huh.
And number two, it's like, I think this might be really good if I add this to it. And so your homeschool program can be the same thing.
Oh, I see.
It's a good starting point,
Uh-huh.
but then expand upon it.
Oh, I see. You can implement.
Yes.
Wow.
Adapt it to fit the needs of your student or students. Adapt it to fit the needs of what your objectives are.
Wow. That's beautiful. Because I'm planning on homeschool my child.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, I figured that.
Yeah. So you've been teaching at private schools all along, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So why did you choose private school instead of a public school?
Probably in part because I grew up going to private schools and we had some good teachers and we had some terrible teachers. And I figured I will do my best to be one of the better teachers and at least listen to the kids and help prepare them so they're not stuck with some of the terrible teachers I had.
Man, I've learned a lot today, and even when I was with you for a few days, I learned a lot also. It was a great team and it was a beautiful experience. I'm glad I'm not there anymore, but
yeah. Oh, I really enjoyed my time there too.
yeah, I just remember the water spraying everywhere.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Thank you, Dan, for making time to answer all my questions, and I guess your career as a teacher doesn't end.
Yeah, I figure it's kind of my career as a student. I always want to keep learning, and I will probably always be teaching.
That's true. I'm so thankful I could meet you there and could catch up with you in a little bit less than 10 years.
Yeah, I know. It's been great chatting with you. And again, congratulations on your child coming.
Thank you.
That'll be a fun new experience for you.
Yeah. It'll be a whole other challenge, but I'll learn a lot. Thank you, Dan. Probably I'll call you again in less than 10 years.
Okay, good. Do that.
Enjoy your trip to Bahama.
I will do that. I'm looking forward to that too.
Yeah.
You take care, Jaywalk.
Yeah, you too. Have a good evening.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.